This is a video that, frankly, I've been afraid to make, and I'm probably going to get a lot of heat about it in the comments, but let's jump in. And I want to talk about something that I've seen really hurt people in their 50s and 60s and lead to deep regret that, unfortunately, cannot be undone. And that is talking about why people are afraid to retire outside of the financial aspects. I've been a financial advisor for over 20 years. I've helped guide hundreds of families into retirement, and oftentimes people are hesitant to retire even though they have more than enough money financially to retire, and they have different fears that they're concerned with. And more often than not, in fact 80+% of the time, after people go through the transition and they're in their new life, they're in their retired life, they really wish they had pulled the trigger sooner. But at this stage, there's no mulligans, there's no do-overs. So in today's video, I want to share with you my view on why this happens, and more importantly, what you can do to make sure that doesn't happen to you after you've worked hard for 20, 30, 40 years. You've done all the right things. You've built that financial nest egg that's hard. You've paid off the mortgage. You've helped put the kids through college. You've saved for retirement. And now you're on the home stretch. And all you have to do is reach out and grab that brass ring and say, yes, this is the life that I want. But it's very, very common that people hesitate to reach that brass ring and to actually grab it when it's right there for them. And one of the reasons that I think it's hard to do this is as we age, our brains change, and we become less brave and we become less adventurous. And so why is that? I think one of the reasons is our brains go through two different phases. If you were to ask a 20-year-old, hey, you have more than enough money to retire, would you retire? Would you keep working? 99.9% of them would say no. I'm still going to do things. I'm still going to give back to society, but I'm not going to work for somebody else. I'm not going to continue the grind. I'm going to enjoy the other things in life. So what happens? What happens between the time we're 20 and the time we're 50, we're 60s? Well, one of the things is our brains change. When we're younger, our brains, it's called fluid versus crystalline. And a fluid brain is fast, it's innovative, it's brave, it's risk-seeking. And the crystalline version of our brain, the good news is it's more insightful, and it's based on experience, and it's better at integrating various aspects of our life. But unfortunately, it's also risk-averse. And I think this is part of what we're seeing. The brains of a 20-year-old is very different than the brains of a 50-year-old. And the terms I'm using and the insights that I'm sharing is from a book that I highly recommend. It's written by Arthur Brooks, and it's called From Strength to Strength. So not only are our lives different, right? When you're in your 20s, you have all the time, you likely have a lot of health, right? Most 20-year-olds don't have health issues, but they have no money. And then when you're in your 50s and 60s, you're fortunate and you've got the money side of things. Hopefully you're still young enough that you're not dealing with a health issue. I know that's not true for everybody, but for many of us in our 50s or early 60s, we're not dealing with health issues yet, and we have money. So it's this magical period of time that unfortunately I see people delaying, people being concerned and being afraid to pull the trigger, in months and years go by, months and years that you can't get back. Unfortunately, once we're 60 years old, most of us have less than 1,000 weeks of healthy, active time remaining, and each one of those weeks is super precious. And so if we're not retiring because we're concerned, let's talk about it. And another thing that I see happen is people being concerned about two other things. One is their purpose. In retirement, what is your purpose going to be? What are you going to do in the morning that's going to give you a sense of accomplishment? And I think as humans, we're wired to want that, and I think that's a fine thing. And my suggestion there is, as soon as you can, start thinking about diversifying your portfolio of activities, your portfolio of causes, your portfolio of missions that give you purpose. You know, maybe you enjoy traveling, maybe you enjoy coaching the high school volleyball team, maybe you enjoy spending time with your adult kids and your grandkids. These are all things that give us purpose, but it's just too easy for us to put everything that gives us purpose in one basket called our job, our job. And candidly, I see this more with women than I do, I'm sorry, with men than I do with women, that we put too much of who we are and who our identity is. We tie too much of that to our career. And you know, the reality is our jobs should be fulfilling. Our jobs should be fun. Our jobs need to pay the bills, right? But if it's our only source of purpose, even I don't care how much you feel like a family, the reality is most of us are at-will employees, at least in the United States. I'm traveling right now. I'm in Guatemala. And people around the world are shocked to hear that in the United States, you know, we could go into work tomorrow and find out we've lost our jobs. Now, if you're a union employee, if you're a government employee, and certain Fortune 500 companies have like a process they have to put you through. But let's be candid. Once you get put on what's called a performance improvement plan, I'm not an HR expert. My wife did HR for a while, but most people never get off of that performance improvement plan. Usually the exit of the performance improvement plan is not a pat on the back saying, hey, great job, we're really glad that you stepped things up and you can relax now, you're fine. That unfortunately is usually not the outcome. The outcome is, you know, being told you're not a match for the company and you need to leave. So in many parts of Europe, in many parts of the world, there's kind of a contract. There's not just kind of, there is a contract. So I think particularly in the U.S., tying our identity to and our purpose solely to our job is super risky. So think about diversifying that. The other item that I see and I hear people talk about, and as a financial advisor that confided in me, is they're afraid they're going to be bored in retirement. They say, hey, Azul, what am I going to do that's more exciting, that's more fun to do every day than what I'm doing now going to work? And I think that's great. And there are people that should not retire early, right? Their destiny is to continue to work and maybe scale back and maybe not as intensely. I think of Warren Buffett as an example. Here's a guy in his late 90s. That's one of the richest people in the world. He definitely doesn't need to work for money, but yet he still goes into work. And he does it because it gives him joy. And if in your heart of hearts you really love your job, then great, you've won the lottery, right? You've got a job that you love, and hopefully it pays well, and hopefully you can also balance in and get to do other things in your life. But you know, the reality is when they do surveys of companies, when they ask people to put their name on the survey, it's about 80% of people say that they love their job and 20% do not. But when they take that same survey and you don't have to put your name on the survey, you can do it anonymously. Guess what? The results flip. It's 80% of the people say they don't love their job. So ask yourself which category you're in. And one way to get there, one way to truly answer the question is ask yourself, if you won $100 million in the lottery this weekend, would you still be at work in 3 months? Would you still be going to work 5 days a week? Would you still be working 40 hours a week? For most of us, the answer to that is no. And yes, $100 million is a lot of money, but being financially independent and being financially comfortable without a job, right? That's what we're working towards when we're saving our money. There's not a lot of difference between that and $100 million. Yes, there might be a comma, an extra comma in there. There might be some extra zeros. But as far as the impact of your life, there's not a lot of difference. So if you answered the question, hey, Azul, of course, if I won $100 million, I wouldn't be going to work in 3 months, in 2 months, whatever kind of notice you want to give, in 2 weeks, in 2 hours. right? If that's you, then you're probably a candidate for thinking about retiring early once you're financially able, or either way, building this nest egg, this portfolio of things to diversify both how you enjoy your time so you're not bored, and what your identity is and your sense of purpose. So think about diversifying those things so that you're ready to go. And until the time you're ready to retire, that's what this video up here is for. It's 8 things to stop doing in your 50s and 60s in order to enjoy the journey more. Thanks for watching this video. I'll see you in that one.